Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to chat with Sarah Hovnanian. Sarah is the mother to a non-speaking autistic little boy named Haik. He is 6 years old. And today we're going to be talking all about Haik's autism journey and about how Sarah is a spell to communicate practitioner, a little bit about Gestalt language processing, things we connected on. Haik is around the same age as my son, Kyler. We got to talking, and she's a spell to communicate practitioner, and also both our boys communicate the same way. He is a Gestalt language processor. So we're going to be talking all about that. I'm so excited to chat with her today. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, and we'll start from there.
My name is Sarah Hovnanian. I'm a mom to an amazing little boy who's about to turn 6 years old, who is non-speaking and autistic. I'm also a public school teacher, and I've been teaching for the past 15 years.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you today. Just to start from the beginning, can you please share a little bit about your son's autism diagnosis?
So my son, Haik, he received an autism diagnosis at 2 years of age. And I can pretty much say with absolute certainty, as a mother's instinct, I knew my son was developing differently as young as probably 1.5 years old. Haik was born 10 weeks early. So as a premature baby, we were told that he would most likely not meet his milestones exactly on target. And not to worry, he'll most likely be delayed, but will develop on his own timetable. So we watched and we waited, and ended up he was delayed in mostly all milestones. But he did eventually roll over in both directions, sit up, pull himself up, do the army crawl, then the regular crawl, cruise the couch. And, he was taking his first steps around 12 to 13 months of age. So we were pretty excited about that. But speech never developed. And we also noticed he was walking pretty high up on his toes, and he had a very uncoordinated, clumsy gait when he walked. So that was definitely a concern for us. There was eye contact at the beginning from when he was an infant all the way till maybe 1 and 1.5, but that went away. And then there was this period between 20 to 22 months old that my husband and I would walk into his room while he was playing, and he wouldn't acknowledge us. He was very engrossed in things that interested him, different toys and things, and he didn't respond to his name or even turn his head in the direction of his name. And I remember we would just cry and just pray that we could connect with our son and that he would connect with us and show an interest in having us around. And all we wanted was to know our son and connect with him. And we didn't know how long it would be with him not acknowledging us. And as time went on, he was receiving speech, OT, PT, in an early intervention program. And we did start noticing a lot of positive changes in him. And we ended up hearing his voice for the first time the day before his 3rd birthday. He was sitting at the dining room table. He opened up a book and he recited the ABCs aloud while pointing to each letter going across the page. And I was completely blown away. And so it's been a really amazing journey ever since. And as they say, progress isn't linear. So we've had our ups and our downs. We've had our mountains and our valleys. But it's really been truly a beautiful journey for the past 6 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like seeing the progress is it just makes things worthwhile, even though you still, face struggles daily. I can relate to that. Definitely can. And just the fact that you were able to hear his voice, see him, recite the alphabet. I can imagine how you felt. I know that feeling.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when we connected, you mentioned that your son, Haik, is a Gestalt language processor. I was wondering when you found out about Gestalt language processing and how does that present in your son?
Yes. So as months went on after we first heard his voice, we would hear him hum songs. And most of the time, we could tell what song it was because we're always around him when he's listening to songs. So we knew every song, every lyric to every song he ever heard. And that was
Yeah.
very helpful. And I did hear about Gestalt language processing around that time. And for those that don't know, if their audience is not familiar with it, it's how he's processing language in chunks. And over time, with a lot of modeling from us and his speech therapist, he will go through these predictable stages of breaking down those chunks into single words. And then you build more complete thoughts and sentences from there. So the thing is that with more than half of his speech, because he would hum those songs after we first heard his voice, so more than half of his speech was really unintelligible and basically just kind of like strings of melody. And so it was really hard to know like what stages he was in and how to move him through those different stages. And I also knew that, we were working with the fine motor of speech, which is the finest of the fine. So it was difficult to really kind of like elicit speech from him. And it was around that time also he was introduced and received an AAC device. And I was really excited about that. And we noticed that he would watch, YouTube kid videos, let's say a song about the solar system, and he would find the folders in his device for the planets and press the button for each planet along with the song. And so the AAC device itself really became like a language learning device where he was making incredible connections to concepts he was learning and listening to, and never truly became a talker or a speech generating device.
Hmm.
And we knew from a young age, that Haik was taking in, he was understanding and making connections to the world around him. And even though he cannot at that point follow through on like a 1 to 2 step direction and show us in traditional ways that he understands what we're saying and what
Hmm.
he's listening to, I knew that he was understanding everything around him. I just had that instinct about my son.
Yeah.
And I decided to write 2 books about his early journey as a Gestalt language processor, because at that point, he wasn't able to show his teachers in preschool or therapists that he understood everything, but I knew he did. And I knew he was probably being underestimated in about every way. So this was kind of, and these are the 2 books right here, but it was kind of like something I wanted to write for him for posterity,
Yeah.
so that he could look back as an adult and read about his journey that his mom wrote about him. But it was also like I was giving it to his teachers. Like,
Uh,
look, like, don't underestimate my son. He
yeah.
is more capable than you even realize. And he's not going to show in a traditional way that he understands. So that was pretty much a little bit more about the Gestalt language development journey that we took with him. But mostly it was, we reached almost a wall where I wasn't really able to move him through those stages because he had such unreliable speech. The speech he did have was mostly unintelligible. And so it was a point where I had to, stand back and say, okay, I know this is how he's processing language, but I still need to find a way to bring out his communicative language. How is he going to communicate with me, even if it's non-verbally? I need him to be able to communicate with us. Because every day and year that goes by that he's not able to communicate his basic needs or wants
Yeah.
is dangerous. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. But I love how you wrote a book, you wrote books about his journey. First for him to see when he's older, but also to educate his teachers on how he communicates, because every child is different, and just that way of advocating is just I love that. I absolutely love that you did that.
Thank
um
you.
yeah, I feel like with our son as well, he is also a Gestalt language processor, and I feel like we have kind of reached that wall you mentioned, where he can't move. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe because I'm not very, I don't know a lot about Gestalt language processing, and we're not working with a professional with it. I just yeah, I feel like we just is I'm not seeing any more progress from what I've noticed, but I mean,
Mm,
he's doing great with communicating through his music and Mickey Mouse
yes.
phrases and his TV show phrases. And my instincts always help me know what he means,
Mm,
even though sometimes things are just so straightforward, like him listening
sure.
to a sad song that says, "Sometimes I feel a little bit sad," and so that's just straightforward. He's sad,
Sure.
and but there's some where we were at the pool the other day with my mother-in-law, and she gave him lollipops after he had said, he was listening to a sad song. So then
Yeah.
she's also trying to work with what I'm teaching her. So she was just like,
Yeah.
okay, he's sad, I'm going to give him a lollipop, even though we're not so always for lollipops. I was just like,
Yeah.
okay. And he was
Yes.
so thankful. And we were doing things and I didn't realize it. And then after a while, I heard him, his next song was "Please, Sorry, Thank You." And I was like, he's saying thank you to you with that song. And she was
Yes.
so, and I was glad that I caught it. And that instinct told me that, because sometimes it's just happening, but that was so fitting. I was like, this is him telling you, thank you, Grandma, for giving me
Absolutely.
a lollipop. So, yeah, so that's the kind of progress we're seeing and we're understanding. And he will write phrases, but maybe it's because I'm not sure how to move forward with it. But so
It's
maybe we're
hard because you don't, I guess in Gestalt language processing, you want to kind of get them to stage 3, which is, that they're actually um, parsing out the individual words, and then you build up from there. But as a, unreliable speaker, non-speaker, I don't know. He probably was at that point in the process maybe years ago. So I can't even really rely on what he's saying through
yeah,
speech because it is so unreliable, his speech. And
yeah,
so I'm presuming competence, and I'm realizing in retrospect that he was probably far along in those stages even
yeah,
before I thought he was. Or I was modeling for stage 1 and 2, but really he was in stage 3, 4, and 5.
yeah.
So yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I never thought of that.
it's awesome what they're able to communicate to us, but we're willing to listen and really watch, and we're
Yeah,
so invested. And it's
yeah,
kind of hard, and I take myself out of that for a second. I kind of look in objectively and I say, well, how are all his teachers and therapists going to invest the same way I'm investing? So it is kind of a standard that I'm projecting out that I probably shouldn't,
yeah,
because I'm so connected to my son that it almost just comes naturally to me. But I have to remember
yes,
that it doesn't come naturally to everyone else in
to
his
every
in his greater circle in life. Yeah.
yes, that is so true. Yeah, it's hard for a teacher to feel how we feel. And also we have that mother's instinct that it's
Uh,
just our connection with our kids. Nobody else can
Absolutely.
do that, you
That's
know?
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, as your journey moved on, you shared that you are a spell to communicate practitioner. When did you first hear about spell to communicate, and what made you decide to go that route for your son?
Yes, definitely. So I first learned about spelling to communicate after reading the book Underestimated by Jameson Handley and J.B. Handley. And then there was a film festival near me in Connecticut for the Spellers documentary. And I went that day. I sat in my seat, and to the left of me was Elizabeth Bonker's stepdad. And Elizabeth Bonker was there with her mom that day. And he and I struck up conversation, and we both cried through the entire film. And Elizabeth was there that day. She was part of the panel of spellers who took questions from the audience after the film. And she typed her answers on her speech generating device, letter by letter. And that was the moment I went home and I said, I can do this. I've been an educator for about 13 years at that point. And I wanted to do this for my son. I wanted to be able to help him and really know in depth the neurology and neuroscience behind spelling to communicate. And I knew that I would love to work with non-speakers just like my son, and that I could see myself doing that for the rest of my life. So I signed up, went through the application process, waited to hear back, and then I started the program. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I can imagine you seeing Elizabeth right there in person. We were seeing the documentary, but in
Yes.
person and typing, that must have been wow.
It's
And yeah,
amazing. I always say, and other parents have said the same thing, that when you see it, you can't unsee it. So
yeah,
it's just incredible, and profound and touching.
yeah,
Um, and it's just it brings your perspective to a whole nother level about
yeah,
what non-speaking individuals are capable of.
yeah. That's so true. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So you shared about how you were very interested in learning the neurology behind spell to communicate. How would you explain the whole process of spell to communicate to a parent that has never heard about it before?
Sure. Yeah. So with S2C, and that is short for spelling to communicate, basically what we're doing is taking fine motor out of communication. So by pointing to letters on a letterboard, individuals are able to use the gross motor on the larger muscles of the shoulder and the arm to communicate. Um, the brain has the ability to rewire and form new neural pathways due to neuroplasticity. So 25% of our brain power in the motor cortex of our brain is dedicated to gross motor movements, which means that 75% of our brain power is dedicated to fine motor. So with the gross motor movements, these areas in the brain are slower and less precise. So it's taking up less of our brain power. And for those that experience a disconnect between the brain and the body, the general term being apraxia, we can focus on purposeful motor of the bigger muscles to bypass the fine motor completely. So for parents and caretakers, just learning about spelling to communicate, it's important to know that we are not teaching the student to spell. We are not doing drills before trying S2C to make sure they can spell already. We are completely presuming competence in our student, our child. They want to learn, they can learn, period. We are feeding their brain by reading aloud a passage that's age appropriate, that will happen during the session. And we're never telling them the name of the letter to go to because they already know. We basically are just coaching their eyes and their arms, coaching their body to move to the letter that they need. We are building that muscle memory, which eventually leads to motor control. So I once heard a great analogy for learning a new motor skill in a particular S2C. So imagine you're learning the motor skill of calligraphy. Okay, your focus is to learn the mechanics and flow of how to make the sweeping movements on the paper. And now imagine you're learning that skill and someone comes up to you and says, "Great, now write an essay about the causes of the American Revolution." And you have to write it in calligraphy. So the motor skill is still new and is taking most of your brain power. And now you have this huge cognitive demand, and it's impossible until the motor skill of writing becomes so myelinated and automatic that all you have to think about is the content you're going to write about. You're not going to be able to accomplish that task. And so we have to balance the motor with cognition. It's like a seesaw. So we have different letter boards. There's stencils. And so basically we start with a stencil. You're pretty much taking the 26 letters of the alphabet and you're breaking them up across 3 boards. And the reason why we do that is because we want bigger targets, because ocular motor, with those that experience apraxia, your ocular motor is also affected. So you're really working to get the motor of their eyes to the letter they need to get to. And so the bigger targets are necessary at first. And all you're doing is building that muscle memory, which eventually leads to muscle control. Once the speller, the client, the child is able to automatically and more fluently get to the letter they need to on these boards that are broken up across 3 boards, then you can increase the complexity of the motor demand. And you will start on a 26 letter board, which means that now you have all 26 letters on the same board. It's a brand new motor plan, because now you're looking at all 26 letters together all at once, and it's not broken up the way that you just experienced. So now you have to lower the cognitive load because now your motor demand is higher, and you're kind of just in the seesaw of motor and cognition. And so, I think one of the misconceptions for parents and caretakers that are considering trying this motor approach to communication is that they hear or read books written by non-speakers and think, "Oh, that's great, but not my kid," for reason A, B, or C. And they also may not realize that these fluent spellers and typers did not start out on the keyboard or laminate letterboard or spelling independently and with fluency. Mm-hmm. They all moved through the steps of motor complexity, and most likely it was messy. The progress was not linear, and they fought like heck to get to the point that they're at today. Nothing can replace consistent practice with your child. Consistency over intensity, I always say, is most important. And when those spellers get to a point of open communication, it is not a miracle. It's literally a paradigm shift in how we think about what's possible from a neuroscience and neurology standpoint. So these adults, these teenagers, these kids are not becoming open in these silos, right? This is happening. Now there are thousands of individuals who are breaking openly communicating on the board. So this is something that any child, teenager, adult, at any point can try and be successful at. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it too. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I feel
Yes.
like a lot of parents need to hear that, and not just once or twice. Just it needs to just be like a broken record,
Yes,
because it's
absolutely.
hard for a person that, because we've been taught to think a certain way for so
Mhm.
long, it's hard to change that mindset, you know?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, that brings me to our next question, which is that mindset shift that you go through um,
Yes.
as a parent or a caregiver when you start doing spell to communicate, when you start presuming competence. Um, I
Yes.
just wanted you to talk a little bit more about that mindset shift, because, like I said, it needs to be talked about more and more.
Yes, absolutely. So when you start to learn and truly understand how apraxia presents in your child and how it has nothing to do with their intentions or intellect, everything changes. So when you see that they know what to do, they know how to do it, but their body is not their friend. Their body is not getting the correct signals from the brain to carry out that motor task of what they want to do. And that's all it is. And you will have so much more compassion and empathy for your child, for your client, because you're really seeing it through that lens. And it'll change how you speak to your child, how you expect others to speak to your child. You're speaking to them now in an age appropriate way. Um, you're not speaking, like not speaking to a child as if they were an adult. It's all age appropriate. And it just really, it gives you that hope that you just need to break through and have their inner voice come out, and you will do anything in your power to get to the point where their voice is coming out. And for us in this case, for me and my family, it's spelling to communicate. And it's been just a blessing learning about apraxia. And I never really heard about apraxia before this. I always knew about suspected childhood apraxia of speech, and I never really thought of it or heard it referred to in terms of the whole body. So that's something that has really been a game changer for how my husband and I view our son and what he's capable of doing, and everything. It's been incredible.
That's amazing. Yes, thank you so much for just clarifying that and just saying it in such a easy way to understand. um, yeah, a lot of parents. I didn't hear
Mhm.
about apraxia until
Mm.
I started hearing about spell to communicate.
Yep.
Even apraxia of speech, I had never heard of
Mhm.
it. Through speech therapy, we never heard of it, and
Mhm.
so it's things that we're learning later in our journeys with autism, when it would have been
Yes,
nice to have learned this in the beginning, where we could have
absolutely.
started out, getting the ball rolling without
Yes,
wasting time. But I'm
yes,
just thankful that we now have that information, and we are doing what we can to share it.
right,
And
right.
hopefully it will get to others in early on in their journeys.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. And
yeah.
I feel like as autism parents, we don't know what we don't know. So we don't know to ask certain questions when they're one, two, three, four, five. And I feel like a lot of our clinical professionals are just working in these silos of their subspecialty. No one talks to each other. No one looks at my son's body and brain as systems that need to work together. I really feel if I could change that in um, the field of medicine, I really would, because I feel like everything that I learned, I sought out through reading, through researching, going down rabbit holes, and none of it was shared with me from a professional
Yeah.
for the past 6 years. So it's very frustrating. Very
Yeah,
frustrating.
yes, it is. And I think that a lot of parents can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. I've had to learn so many things all by myself, and it is
Yeah.
hard.
And then and then it's so validating though. Once we do have, yes, it's hard. Yes. And it's validating when we finally meet parents that are living similar situations and have children who are also, spelling on the boards, and that it's like you're surrounded by people who really get it. So
Yeah,
it's wonderful to build that community as well.
yes, that's
Yeah.
absolutely. So, what do you think is the biggest misconception about autistic non-speakers?
Yeah, I feel that the biggest misconception is probably that they don't have capacity, either intellectually or emotionally, and this could not be further from the truth. Right? It's literally the opposite. Their sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are not balanced. They're not aligned. They literally cannot feel their body, most of them. And they share this in books and blogs that they write letter by letter. So I think it's definitely the fact that the biggest misconception is that they're not in there, that they don't understand everything going on around them. They are so in tune um, with others' emotions. And that's something that isn't known or appreciated by most of society, I feel.
Yeah, that is so true. That's something that when I learned about just how in tune they are with our emotions,
Yes.
like it just makes sense. It always made sense before, but it was just like really like it just made it so much more real from
Yes.
because I've always thought that my child when I am dysregulated, my son is dysregulated, but
Mm,
from hearing from the non-speakers share how the depth of it, just
yeah,
hearing from their experience, it's amazing.
it's amazing.
And I think that's something people really need to know and consider because it would help the non-speakers if we consider that. I feel like it would be very helpful for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So while we're on that topic of how they're so affected by our emotions, I wanted you to talk about if you can give any advice to any parents that might be going through struggles with spelling with their child. What would be your advice to them?
So I can speak from experience working with my own child on the letter boards and other non speakers that your child can 100% sense if A, you don't 100% believe that they can do it, or if you doubt yourself in any way. So, quieting your thoughts can be so impactful. And your thoughts, whether positive or negative, can really impact your child and their regulation on the boards. I practice with my son a couple times a day for about 20 minutes each time, and he also practices with another practitioner once a week. And just keep going, have grace for yourself, give yourself grace, and also never quit, never stop. And you also have to just start. A lot of parents are, in my experience, are a little hesitant to start, right? You can't learn to drive in a parked car. Okay. You have to just start and you have to learn as you go. And your speller, your child, your client is going to have a lot of grace for you. They know that you are learning different motor plans as well, because when you have to put this board in front of them, whether it be the letter board that's broken up into 3 boards, the letters, or a 26 letter board, you're learning a rhythm and a motor plan. It's new for you as well, and it's new for them. but you have to give yourself grace and have patience with yourself. So, and I would definitely not only consistently practice, but I would definitely read what non-speakers write and say on their blogs and books. I would also check out, this is a new person that I recently discovered, Dr. Robert Melillo, his third edition of Disconnected Kids. It's a book called Disconnected Kids. He's a cognitive neuroscientist. He really believes in our non-speaking kids. He's a proponent for spelling, and he explains exactly what is happening inside the brain of an individual with autism and ADHD. So I would check out the podcasts that he's a guest on, and really dive deep into just learning more about what's happening inside of your speller, their nervous system, their parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, just everything that is happening behind the scenes. It'll really make you kind of step back, realize what their struggles are, and then forgive yourself for the struggles you're having
Yeah.
as you embark on this new skill. It's a motor skill for you too, and different motor plan that you're learning alongside with your child. So that has to be considered. You can't forget that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel like that is just so insightful, and just I just know that there are a lot of parents that will really benefit from what you just shared here, because uh, social media is really good. We learn a lot of things, right? And but there's this side of social media that is hard when you see parents that are only sharing their wins with their
Mm,
spellers. It makes you feel like are you the only one struggling with spelling with your child? You just feel, I've gone through that. I know that feeling. And I feel like just, what you shared here is really important for them to understand. And also, I wanted to just add, I think you shared a little bit about it, but that their speller really wants to spell. They want to.
yes.
There's one thing that I saw on Facebook that I never will forget. Um, a speller was asked on one of these panels, right after a speller's movie, what
Mm,
do we do when when you guys, it looks like you don't want to spell? What what do you suggest? And he said, treat it like it's life-saving medicine.
mm,
Yeah.
yes. So
And
powerful.
And he said, like, we always want to spell. Our
Mm,
bodies just don't cooperate. And
yes.
your feelings. Oh, another one. I'm just mixing up now, but another speller said to his mom, your excitement is contagious
Mm,
and makes it hard for me to reach the letters.
wow. Wow.
And so all of that I'm hearing from spellers, it's just adding to this
Yes.
advice that I need for this when we're struggling with our spellers. I'm learning so
Sure.
much.
It is. It's a daily, that's the thing. It's through practice and experience with your own child, and then also working with other clients and reading what they say, hearing what they say. It's everything all together. I'm learning something new every day as a practitioner, as a mother.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's amazing. Yeah. So we're down to the last question, and this is one that I love to ask parents at the end of the interview. What is something that your son has taught you about life?
Haik has shown me on a deeper level how much God is in control, how every instinct I had as a mother was planted there by Him, and how I was really led to discover and question everything professionals said and didn't say about my son. And He's taught me that, underestimated individuals will show the world their abilities, and that God's plan and purpose for their lives is beyond anything we can determine or truly understand.
That's beautiful and so true. So, so true. Um, yeah, I can. I can definitely relate. I just know the truth of that. They've been underestimated for so long, and
Mm.
here they are showing the world in such a beautiful, magnificent way that we would never could have fathomed, right?
Oh, they're
And
they're teaching us. They could be so resentful, so bitter, and yet they don't come across that way, even if maybe they truly feel that deep down inside. They're so proud to be teachers and
mhm,
to guide us in, thinking and having a paradigm shift in how we're thinking about what they're capable of, who they are as individuals. So it's their teachers. It's pretty
yeah,
amazing.
they really are. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story and just share such insightful information that I feel like a lot of parents really need right now. This is something I had not done in all of my interviews, just getting to know just what is spelling and, getting into all the details that we do talk about. Sometimes I just presume people that are watching here already know about this stuff, but I am learning
Mhm.
so many people really don't understand it. And this was really important. And so I'm so thankful that you were able to help me get that information out there.
Oh, I feel so humbled and blessed that you allowed me to speak today and to share, my journey with my son, but also just talk about how we really are all connected in this
Yes.
community. So,
Yes. So true. Thank you.
thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified whenever I post new content. Until next time.